Imagine you are standing in a forest 50,000 years ago, barefoot, no roads, no hospitals, no doctors, no antibiotics, and a lion just tore through your leg. The only thing standing between you and death is your body, your group, and whatever your ancestors figured out over millions of years of surviving exactly this. So what actually happened? This isn't a hypothetical. It happened constantly. Every single day, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans got hurt in ways that would send a modern person straight to the emergency room. Falls, spear wounds, snake bites, animal attacks, infections that turned a small cut into something that could kill you within a week. And yet somehow, some of these people survived. Not just survived. Some of them lived for years after injuries that modern medicine would still consider serious. Start with pain. Pain is not your enemy. It is your oldest alarm system. When something breaks or tears, your nervous system floods the area with signals. Your heart rate jumps. Adrenaline spikes. Inflammation begins. Every single one of these responses is your body trying to fix itself, protect itself, and keep you conscious long enough to get somewhere safe. This system was not designed by anyone. It evolved over millions of years, because the individuals whose bodies responded fastest to injury were the ones who lived long enough to reproduce. But here is where it gets interesting. Archaeologists have found something most people never expect to find in the prehistoric record: evidence of survival. Real, physical, undeniable evidence that ancient humans with catastrophic injuries did not always die. They were kept alive. In 2007, archaeologist Eric Trinkhaus published a landmark study analyzing skeletons of Neanderthals and early modern humans. Nearly every adult skeleton showed signs of healed trauma. Broken bones that had set and fused back together. Skull fractures that had partially closed. Injuries that should have been fatal, but weren't, because the person had lived long enough for the bone to begin healing. That process takes weeks. Sometimes months. Which means someone was taking care of them. Bringing them food. Protecting them from predators. Keeping them warm. 50,000 years ago, long before any formal concept of medicine existed, humans were already nursing their injured back to health. Think about what that actually required. You are a small band of maybe 20 or 30 people. One of your group has been badly hurt. Every person in that band is needed for hunting, foraging, carrying. An injured person cannot contribute. They need food brought to them, water carried to them, protection provided around them. And yet the archaeological record shows, over and over, that injured people were kept alive anyway. That is not just compassion. That is a survival strategy. Because a hunter who had survived an attack knew things. A forager who had survived an infection carried knowledge. Keeping that person alive meant keeping their experience inside the group. Knowledge was survival. And knowledge died with the person who held it. But what about injuries that could not heal on their own? What happened when the wound was too severe? In 2022, researchers studying a skeleton found in Borneo announced something remarkable. The individual had lost the lower part of their left leg. The bone showed clean, deliberate cut marks consistent with amputation. And the bone had healed. Grown smooth over the wound site. This person had survived an amputation, performed approximately 31,000 years ago, and lived for years afterward. The researchers, led by Tim Maloney from Griffith University, concluded that whoever performed this operation had enough anatomical knowledge to avoid cutting a major artery and had managed the wound well enough to prevent fatal infection. With no antibiotics, no sterile tools, no formal training. This is the oldest known surgical amputation in the human fossil record, and it rewrote what scientists believed was possible for prehistoric medicine. How did they manage infection? Plants. Ethnobotanists have documented hundreds of plant species used by hunter-gatherer societies for wound treatment that have since been shown to have genuine antimicrobial properties. Yarrow contains compounds that accelerate blood clotting and reduce bacterial growth. Plantain leaves have anti-inflammatory effects. Certain tree barks contain compounds similar to aspirin. Charcoal absorbs toxins. None of these people knew why these plants worked. They knew that they worked. Because the ones who used the wrong plants died. And the knowledge of the wrong plants died with them. The ones who used the right plants lived, and passed the knowledge forward. One of the most powerful examples in the entire archaeological record is Shanidar 1, a Neanderthal discovered in Iraq in 1957 by archaeologist Ralph Solecki. This individual had a withered arm, a healed head wound, and significant damage to one leg. He was likely blind in one eye. He would have been almost entirely dependent on his group for survival. And he lived to what was, for a Neanderthal, an old age. His group fed him, sheltered him, protected him, for years. The image of prehistoric life as a brutal competition where only the strongest survived and the injured were abandoned is wrong. It was never the whole picture. Because in a world with no writing, no books, no way to store knowledge outside of human memory, the most experienced minds were the most valuable resource a group could have. Even when those minds lived inside broken bodies. Your body right now carries the inheritance of all of this. The instinct to help before you have even decided to. The discomfort you feel watching someone in pain. The oxytocin that floods you when you care for someone who is hurt. None of that is accidental. It is the biological residue of 100,000 decisions made by your ancestors in the dark, around fires you will never see, about people whose names will never be recorded anywhere. They chose, again and again, to keep the injured alive. Not out of sentiment. Out of survival. And because they did, you are here. 50,000 years ago, someone lay in a forest with a wound that should have killed them. And someone else chose to stay. That choice was not medicine. It was something older than medicine. It was what your body already knows how to do, every time it reaches towards someone who is hurt without stopping to ask why.